It's episode 2 of After the Buzzer. In this one, we're going to talk about the NFL and the college football playoffs because they just released their second rankings. Now we kind of have a projected playoff bracket as the season stands right now. Now, taking a look at it, we're going to look at what they have so far. The first 4 seeds, Texas A&M comes in at the 3, Indiana at the 2, Alabama at the 4, and then Ohio State at the 1. You know, the Buckeyes, Indiana, and Texas A&M all are undefeated on the season. Now, if you look at the first round, actually there's some pretty good matchups, I think, as that's the projected if things stood still right now. But South Florida, they are the highest rank in their conference, so they would get the 12th seed, even though they're not the 12th overall, so they bump BYU out. BYU would be the second team out currently. South Florida 7-2, they would face off against Georgia, who is 8-1, the 5-12. Obviously, Georgia is a powerhouse, but seeing South Florida get into that playoff picture is pretty cool. I love the non-Power 5 teams. I think they should always have a bid into the playoff brackets. I know some people have said they shouldn't, but I completely disagree. And then the 9-8 seed, Oregon and Notre Dame. I don't know, as a Duck fan, I don't think Oregon's ever played Notre Dame. In 8-1 Ducks, 7-2 Notre Dame. The Ducks just had a rough offensive showing against Iowa, but they did come away with the win. So that would be nice to see. And then if you look at Notre Dame, I mean, they just beat Navy 49-10, which that's about what should probably happen. And Notre Dame hasn't lost since week 2, which was to now the potential 3 seed Texas A&M Aggies. So Notre Dame is kind of on a tear. They beat USC, who is a ranked team. They beat Arkansas, Purdue. You know, not the greatest schedule as of strength. They're 1-2 against current, or they're 1-2 against top 25 teams, and then they have Pitt 22 this next week. So I think that'll be a test to see how much Notre Dame has come. And then Oregon, you know, well they lost to Indiana, and then they've won every other game. Oregon still sits in the top 10. Currently 8th in the college football playoff, which I like because they beat Iowa. But then you see that Indiana lost by 10. Indiana's still a perfect 10-0. Now, a couple other matchups. The other matchups, Miami and Texas Tech. Surprisingly, Miami's still in the 11th. I think they've kind of struggled. I know they were up there in the rankings just a little bit, but I think they've struggled just a tad this year with... Well, I mean, they lost to SMU and Louisville. So those are 2 really bad losses if you're Miami, if you're the Hurricanes. So I think that will be a little bit interesting. But nonetheless, they took down Syracuse. They have NC State, Virginia Tech, and then they close out with Pitt. They beat Notre Dame, and they beat South Florida and Florida State. So those are 3 good wins, especially having 2 of those in the playoff picture right now. And they would take on 9-1 Texas Tech Raiders. I kind of like that. Texas Tech is 9-1, but they're currently the 6th seed in this projected playoff bracket. Now, with that saying, Texas Tech, they've had a pretty good year, I would say. All right, last week, I mean, they beat BYU, which BYU at the time was 7. Texas Tech was 8. They beat them 29-7, which is, I mean, that's a beatdown. BYU probably fighting above their weight class in that one, but nonetheless, that's a good win for Texas Tech because if you look at their schedule, their only loss is to Arizona State, which was only a 4-point loss. But you know, you look at the rest of it, not the hardest schedule. They took down Utah though by 24, which is a good win, and I would say Kansas State by 23, BYU by 22, and now they have UCF and West Virginia up next. So that's going to be a little bit interesting. They don't have a bye this week. They have a bye after UCF, so they should be able to close out 2-0. And I think they'll stay in the brackets as long as they don't lose to one of those 2. And then the 10-7 matchup, Ole Miss and Texas. Now, we obviously know a lot about Texas here, and I mean, they came in as a projected 1, and they just have not. I mean, they're finally getting it together now, but it was bad. They were awful earlier this season. I mean, they lost to Ohio State 14-7, which isn't bad. They beat San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston. Then they lost to unranked Florida and now they're on a 4-game winning streak, so I think they've kind of got that momentum back. I think they figured things out. That it was a rough start with Archie and the team. There's a lot of hype, so I think, it just took them a little bit to get that chemistry down. The defense is clicking, even with a couple of key injuries. You still got Leonga Leifau back there, so in the linebacker group. So I think Texas, they're finally getting the rhythm. And this week's huge, actually. Texas and Georgia play each other. So I think, if Texas, you lose that's your third loss. You probably drop out of the playoff rankings, as you should, because you have 3 losses, and there's still quite a few one loss, 2 loss teams. So Texas, you got to win that. Georgia, you probably want to win that so you can have a case for the top 4. But Texas, I think that's a bigger game for Texas than it is Georgia, because they need that win to kind of still be in that running for that playoff spot. Because I think if you lose 3 games right now with only 2 games to go after that, it doesn't get easier because they play Texas A&M to close out the season. So Texas, I think you have to win out. It's going to be a little tricky with those 2 ranked teams who are both in the top 5. But if Texas has figured things out, those 2 will be good games. So hopefully, if they do lose, it's a close game. But I still think I know they're SEC and everything, but I don't think you can be 3-4 loss team in the playoff rankings, even if you are SEC. I know the SEC bias, but if you lose 3, I think you're out. That's personally me, unless they beat Texas A&M to end it. So we'll see for that one. Ole Miss, they're kind of on a tear this year. I really like seeing what they've done this season. They started off 6-0, and then they ran into Georgia, but they only lost 43-35 to the Bulldogs. So that's a really close game. And then they went back and beat Oklahoma 34-26. Now, the only problem I have with how Ole Miss is ranked, and not just because I'm a Duck fan, but Oregon beat a ranked Iowa team. I know it was a super low scoring, super close, but Iowa was ranked. Ole Miss beat the Citadel 49-0. They beat the type of opponents, and Ole Miss jumps Oregon to go into 7th, and Oregon goes to 8th. So I don't know how the college playoff rankings works there, because I don't like how college football does that, where they're playing teams like the Citadel. Bama used to do it all the time, where they would play just a FCS school or a D2, like whatever it was, mid to end part of the season, and they would still rise in the rankings, and that doesn't make sense because of the type of opponent. But nonetheless, that's what the CFP has. So they got, once again, South Florida against Georgia. Winner would play Bama. Notre Dame and Oregon. Winner would play Ohio State. Miami and Texas Tech. Winner would play Texas A&M, and then Texas Ole Miss. Winner would play Indiana, and then so forth. Now, obviously, it doesn't start for a couple more weeks, but it's nice to see where the college football playoff has these teams at, because if you look, first team out would be Oklahoma, second team would be BYU. And that's because you get the automatic bids for conference winners. So, nonetheless, though, but South Florida, you keep winning because you really thought it would be either San Diego State or Memphis, but Memphis lost last week, and then San Diego State lost to Hawaii, which, if you stay up to watch Hawaii play football, I know a lot of people are on East Coast, West Coast, so it's super late, but UH just destroyed San Diego State from the get-go. There was a penalty, taunting penalty on the second drive of the game. It would have been 4th and 18 for the Bows. San Diego State called for that, and it seemed to turn the tide for UH in that game, and then they just ran away with it. So really nice to see Hawaii. They're also bowl eligible. They have a chance I think they still have a chance of winning the Mountain West if they can win out. But nonetheless, San Diego State, they're out of the contention now because of that loss. It was just week 10 in the NFL, and we had, a lot of close games, a lot of good games too. We had Broncos-Raiders on that Thursday, boring but close game. Falcons-Colts, Giants-Bears, that was an incredible finish. The Bears, Caleb Williams, he really starred in that one, and it hurt for the Giants that Jackson Dart went down and you had to bring in Russell Wilson. No offense to Russ, but Jackson Dart was balling. 242 yards. He was cooking them, and he goes down in the first half, and it kind of changed the momentum, especially with the Caleb Williams run to win the game, essentially. Now, an interesting one. Miami and Buffalo. That one, 30-13 Miami. That was a must-win for the Dolphins because of their season. They only had 2 wins going into that game. Buffalo, you're sitting second in the AFC East. You're trying to catch up to the Patriots. You're trying to take that first seed. And then here comes Miami. They wanted it. They wanted it more. They end the 7-game losing streak against Buffalo, which is great for Tua, great for McDaniels. So, it was only... It really was just lopsided from the get-go. Like, at halftime, it was 16-0. Buffalo could not get anything going. Buffalo only scored in the fourth. They scored 13 points, which is great, but Miami went and scored another 14 as well, so they took a 30-13 win. That one is huge. I really think because Miami gets their 3rd win of the season. That's a crucial one. You hopefully change the tide and you make kind of a run. I don't think you make playoffs, but you make a run to save some jobs. You save some jobs, and you prove that, hey, first part of the season, just a fluke. We got this figured out, but you're going to have to put together some string of runs, and I think beating Buffalo after 7 straight losses is a good way to start. Now, if you're Buffalo, you're 2-2 in conference play now. I don't think it's anything to worry about, but this loss really opens the door for New England to take it because all of us football fans, once Tom Brady left, we're like, okay, the reign of terror for the Patriots is over. And now Drake May has them in first. They're 8-2. Buffalo 6-3. Now, if Buffalo, you're in conference play, you're 4-2, but in division play, you're only 2-2. You've beat the Jets and you beat the Dolphins, but then you've lost to the Dolphins and lost to the Patriots. So you split with Miami. You still have a Patriot and a Jet game. Got to win those 2. You're probably going to need some help if you want to win the division now because of the 8 wins for Patriots, 6 for you. So you're going to, if Patriots keep cooking, you might be a wild card team if you're Buffalo. Now, the late game slates on Sunday. Those were phenomenal. Competitive-wise, not really, but scoring-wise and performance for the winning teams, insane. All right, now let's take a look. For Detroit, you win 44-22 against the Commanders. I know Washington, they started Marcus Mariota because of that injury to Jaden Daniels, who he's probably not going to go on IR, so maybe he'll be back for the season. But if you're Washington, you might, I don't know if you really want to bring him back if you're just losing games. But if you look at the Lions, Jared Goff, 3 touchdowns, 322 yards, and then Jahmyr Gibbs, 142 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery, 71 yards, 0 touchdowns. Detroit was clicking on all cylinders. You score 14 in the first, 11 in the second, 10 in the third, and the 9 in the fourth. That's a pretty productive day for offense and the defense, holding Washington to, only single digits per quarter. I know you gave up 22, but you had enough room, and I don't think Marcus Mariota played horrible. I think he played fine. QBR 82.8. He only incomplete passes, only 6, 2 touchdowns. It was the run game for Washington that couldn't get going. Your leading runner only had 30 yards, while Detroit has 2 guys over 70, one guy nearly 150. So defensively, Washington got to figure things out. But the Lions, I think that's actually a really good win for Detroit to kind of get their mojo back because they bounced back from that. Because they were going into that game, they lost 2 of their last 3. One to the Chiefs, one to the Vikings, and they beat the Bucs. So I think this is a good confidence boost, especially having Philly next. And Philly, that one against the Packers, that was a low-scoring game. So Detroit, I think you needed that momentum going into that one against Washington. Hopefully it resets your season. And then you got to look at the Rams versus Niners. That game was bad from the get-go for the 49ers. Now, LA clicked on all cylinders. Matthew Stafford has been playing fantastic the last 4 or 5 games, not throwing a single pick. Against the Niners, he had 4 touchdowns, 280 yards, 24 for 36 passing. It's a very good day with 4 different receivers catching a touchdown. He wasn't force-feeding Puka. He wasn't force-feeding Devontae, which as a Rams fan, I think happens quite a bit. But this one, it was pretty evenly distributed. And then you had 2 running backs who had double-digit carries. I think that's a recipe for success if you're the Rams. You're getting things going. You revenge that loss. Again, I still think the Rams, a couple plays away from being 9-0 right now. I still think they are one of the best teams in the NFC West. I'm not saying that because I'm biased. I think that is real. And, if you're the 49ers, obviously you have injuries. But I don't think you can use that as a crutch anymore because you have injuries every year. The Niners are the most injury-prone team in recent years. And Mac Jones, he hasn't been playing horrible. The run game, McCaffrey was really shut down. He only had 30 yards on the ground on 12 carries. And I know, after this game, just seeing on Twitter, like Niner fans, oh, the Rams be the JV team. You guys still have studs playing. You have Juwan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. And yeah, Mac Jones isn't the starter, but he has been playing well. And you guys have 6 wins on the season. So it's not like you are 2-8 or whatever it may be. You have 6 wins. You have a winning record, and you're right there in the race for the NFC West and a wild card spot. So this whole JV, injury prone, that doesn't really work when your team is winning. It only works if you're losing. Like if your team is winning, your backups are good, okay? And they are. They have found ways to win. They just couldn't. I think it caught up with them there because obviously the Rams were kind of dealing on offense. And then defense, Niners did get things going, or on offense, Niners did get things going, but the Rams kind of shut it down towards the end with a couple picks or a pick, and then I think there was one more turnover. I can't remember, but it was the Rams defense kind of locked in, and I think that's going to help them rest of the way. But 49ers, you guys have a good team. Even if you have a lot of injuries, it might be catching up now, but you still have studs on the roster, and you still have 6 wins. If you start losing from here on out, then you can blame the injuries. But because you were 6-3 going into that game with the backups, that's just me. That's just personal preference. And then Seattle, that was a just domination from the start. 21 in the first quarter against Arizona, 17 in the second. You don't score in the third, you slow down in the fourth, but the first half is really all you needed. 21 and 17 in the first 2 quarters, scoring-wise. That's pretty impressive. And really, Sam Darnold, he only threw 12 passes. That's pretty impressive as you guys score, 38 points in the first half, and Arizona's only got 7. So it's really, I don't know. That's a really good game for Seattle, and that keeps them in first in the NFC West because you had a touchdown pass, then a fumble recovery, then a run, another fumble recovery, and then a run. So defense stepped up huge, and I think that is going to be a great game because if you look at the NFC West, 3 teams have winning records: Niners, Rams, Seattle. Seattle and Rams are both 7-2 now, and they play each other this upcoming week. It should be flexed in a prime time if it was up to me. That is going to be a phenomenal game. I cannot wait to watch that one because that is what the NFC West is. They have usually 3 really good teams, and this week's going to show it, especially because if one loses and the Niners win, the Niners are still right there. So I think that one's going to be a really good game, especially with how the defense has been playing for Seattle. The offense kind of got a little slow this past game, but the defense had their back, and that is huge. Now let's take a look at the playoff picture. We're going to look at the AFC, so I'll go in this little corner once again, and looking at the division leaders. You got the Colts, Broncos, Patriots, and Steelers. You got 3 of them at 8-2, and then you got the Steelers 5-4. So AFC North, obviously the weak division on the AFC side because Baltimore's not what they are. Cleveland's obviously not great, and then the Bengals, not great. So Steelers, if they hold on for that spot, theoretically, I could see them be 8 wins, 9 wins, and get in. But the other 3, Colts, Broncos, Patriots, are playing phenomenal ball right now. I know Colts kind of struggled this past week. Same with Broncos, but nonetheless, they're in. And then the wild card, Chargers and the Bills, though they currently have it. And then as well as the Jaguars, because they would be 7, so that would be the 7th spot. And then in the hunt, you got the Chiefs, Texans. And Chargers 7-3, Bills 6-3, Jaguars 5-4. Right now, Chargers and Broncos, you got to keep winning because the Chiefs are coming up. Bills, I know you lost that game, but you still have a game ahead of everyone else in the hunt, so you bounce back this next week. I think the division leaders, as long as nothing crazy happens, you're good. I think they're good, except for maybe Steelers, depending on how Baltimore figures things out. But Chargers could overtake the Broncos right there, and then because the Broncos are kind of like the Chiefs last year, how they're winning these close games. So I'll be interested to see how the AFC West shakes out. But the Colts, I think they have it easily as long as Daniel Jones keeps doing what he's been doing throughout this season, and same with Patriots and Drake May. Buffalo's, though, they're right there as long as nothing happens. And then in the hunt, Chiefs, Texans, they can obviously make a charge because there's plenty of ball left. But Texans, you kind of got to get things figured out. Chiefs, I think they are already figured out. Now, the NFC. Now, if you look in the NFC, you got the Eagles, Seahawks, Lions, Bucks as division leaders. Wild cards, Rams, Bears, Packers, and then in the hunt, 49ers, Panthers. In the hunt, the Panthers getting themselves in the playoff hunt is crazy, especially how this past year went. That is insane to me. Or this earlier this season, how it went, that is insane to me. Then the 49ers, that's what I said. You're in the hunt, okay? With backups, with your JV squad, you're in the hunt. Rams, Seahawks, that's a battle for first. I think one of those two teams will get first in the NFC West, and it could be decided by this Sunday. Eagles, I think you got it. Lions, Packers, and Bears. I mean, anything could happen with those three right now, though. That would be the conference to get 3 teams into the playoffs, I believe. But that is quite impressive for, the NFC North to have. We all thought the Vikings would be right there, but they're coming up, and then the Bucks, and then Panthers right below them. So NFC West, or NFC, is still very tight. I don't think anything is conclusive. I think Philly's going to take the NFC East pretty easily, but besides them, I think the standings can change anyway. I think any team can come in, so it's going to be pretty unique, and it's going to take a while to see how this plays out. I think some teams might separate themselves, but right now it's still so close. Well, that does it for episode 2 of After the Buzzer with Mitch. Hope you liked it, and we're going to do, picks for this week's NFL season, maybe the college football. That'll probably be on Thursday or Friday. I'll wait until after Thursday night game is released, and we'll do the Sunday, Monday games, and then Saturday for college if we get to that. But nonetheless, like, comment, share, and subscribe. That really helps me out. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.